Are live. Welcome to today's Search Engine Journal webinar. Hope you're having a great day and we're thrilled to have you here with us. I am joined by Justin Meredith of Birdeye and Steve Wiideman of Wiideman Consulting. Today we are talking about Google algorithm updates and local SEO. And we're going to get six top tips from these experts that we have with us. So we're going to dive into some latest search algorithm updates and share how these changes are impacting local businesses and what you can do to make sure that you keep your brand in front of customers who are searching. But before we get too deep into this, my name is Heather Campbell. I'm going to be your moderator today. Justin, Steve, thanks for being here with us. Before we get into some general housekeeping, can you tell us a little bit about yourselves?
Justin, I'll let you go first.
Thank you. My name is Justin. I work over at Birdeye. I'm a digital marketing evangelist, so I like to call myself. And I host webinars, and I try to help as many people as I can learn how to optimize their online reputations, their online presence, and help local businesses really establish themselves online.
Awesome. And I'm Steve Wiideman. I'm with Wiideman Consulting Group. I've been in search a good part of 24 years now. And I hail from days working at Disney Parks and Resorts online and left the corporate world back in 2010 to pursue my own dream of running my own small consultancy. 12 years later, we've worked with some incredible brands, a lot of brands in the multi-location franchise sector, including we've worked with Applebee's and IHOP and Public Storage and Skechers and some really fun accounts that I hope to share some stories with today when we get into some of what we're doing in local SEO. I've also written a textbook that's been adopted by 22 universities now called SEO Strategy and Skills, and teaching at 3 colleges, well, 2 universities and 1 college, 9 classes, not all consecutively. So teaching, writing, and just geeking out on all things SEO. So thanks for having me today, and looking forward to sharing a lot of fun stories with you.
Awesome. We're definitely in the right space if we're going to be geeking out. So just real quick, and then we'll get to it. First, if you experience any technical difficulties, please use the chat box to let us know. There are separate tabs for questions and chat, so just take a second to get familiar with those, and you will find the poll tab under there as well. And so we'll have a poll. For any questions that you see that you would like to, you can thumb them up to give them an upvote. That helps us and our presenters know what you're interested in. So we will answer as many of those questions that we have at the end of the presentation. There's also closed captioning. So it's up in the top right of your screen. So there's a little CC button. You can click that. And then we're going to do our best to link to any resources or tools in the chat. But if we miss one, just ask. And resources will also be included in your recap email. You'll get your recap email with this recording today, a few hours after the webinar. So just watch your inbox for that. After the webinar, we do ask that you stick around for a really short survey. It takes less than 3 minutes, and this information really helps us gauge what works for you and how we can make SEJ webinars more useful. And with that, it's enough for me. So I'm going to get out of here. Steve, Justin, it's all yours.
Fantastic. Awesome. Thank you so much. So hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. First off, I want everyone in the chat is already saying hello. It's great to see where everybody's tuning in from. I'm seeing India, St. Louis. I think there's even a side conversation from some people connecting in California. It's awesome to see. So Steve, it's great to talk to you again. We've done a couple of webinars in the past, and I always have a blast. So this is a perfect Wednesday for me. How are you doing?
Fantastic. I was just thinking about a fun story. The other week, before spring break started kicking in, Disney started getting really crowded. And I was actually with my kids, and I told them, I want to go on the Spider-Man ride again. Like, Dad, why do you keep wanting to go on Spider-Man? Why is he your favorite, Marvel character? I'm like, you didn't know? Well, he was the original web designer. And they were like, oh my God. And so the t-shirt I had on was 0 days, without a dad joke. And so I'm classic dad joke guy, apparently. But it's true, right? He's a classic web designer. Anyways, awesome. This is gonna be a lot of fun. I'm excited to as we mentioned, nerd out a little bit and talk about local search. I'm gonna let you kick things off, and we'll dive in.
Awesome. So for anybody who's not familiar with Birdeye, this is what we call our marketing experience flywheel. And we are the #1 experience marketing platform on the market, and we offer all the tools that businesses need to be found, chosen, and the best. So that includes reviews and referrals that increase your brand awareness, web chat and mass texting that allows you to connect with your customers on a much more one-to-one level, and payment methods that'll make the invoice and the billing process easy, and even surveys and analytics insights that collect feedback and allow you to make actionable business decisions that help you improve your performance. Now, Birdeye simplifies the customer experience process from discovery on Google all the way to collecting the receipt after payment. Great experiences lead to happy customers, which in turn help you to get new ones. So before we jump into the discussion, I want to get the audience involved. And it seems like everybody already is with all the chats, which is great. Oh, I see someone from Austin. That's great. I'm actually here in Austin too. I'm right over on the east side, so hello. But I want to get started with a poll. And so this is to help us figure out where we want to focus today's discussion, along with even thinking about future webinars. So if we can go ahead and launch the poll, and that is, which of these challenges do you face the most? Are you not showing up on the first page of Google? Are you bringing in little to no reviews? Are you struggling to create content for SEO? Or is it something else? And if it is something else, feel free to let us know in the chat what you are struggling with. The purpose of this is to help us identify problems so we can also identify solutions.
Or if you're an old school SEO and you saw Birdeye's marketing flywheel and immediately had a reflection of link wheels from the 2000s, add that as other. Awesome. No, don't. I'm just kidding. Everyone knows we don't do link wheels anymore. That was, yeah. Tell you what, you link to me, I'll link to you, and then he'll link to them, and then we'll figure it out. So it's, you know.
Awesome. Okay, so let's see here. What do we have for? All righty. So it looks like the top answer with 51% is not showing up on the first page of Google. Well, I think that's perfect because that's exactly what we're going to talk about. And that's the local SEO and how you can get to that first page, outrank your competition, and ultimately bring in more customers. So I think we should just go ahead and get right to it. But first, Steve, I think on our next slide, we've got your introduction. So if you guys want to see some awesome
We've already talked about me. We can skip this
Steve
one
doing
for sure.
his great stuff.
Yeah. You know what I'm missing from that slide though is I got to get the little M3 Bradley on there since everyone always asks, hey, you got a lot of military stuff. Go ahead.
So let's get right to it. And I think the best place to start this discussion is by going over the relationship between local businesses and SEO. So my first question is for you is, how does local SEO impact local businesses?
Sure. Well, it's almost a obvious question, right? There's no phone books anymore. It's important that that all businesses think about how their customers and users are finding them. Referrals and word of mouth are fantastic, and some of the best customers come out of it. But in times where there's pandemics and people are on lockdown and they're not going to their favorite places, or worse, their favorite places are closed, they're going to Google, they're going to Bing, they're going to Yelp. They're going to Apple Maps. They're trying to find products and services and solutions and restaurants, from their mobile devices, most likely. And we need to be there when they are. And I think a fundamental challenge that a lot of local businesses have is they don't understand the attributes that play a role in them appearing in search results. Thankfully, Google's done a good job with updates they've made recently that help make sure if they're nearby where somebody is searching, that they have a higher probability of showing up in maps. But even then, what if no one's giving them reviews or commenting or sharing pictures, and the competitor shows up with tons of great reviews and star ratings and all these pictures? It's going to stand out, and the users, even if the business is number one in the search results, the user is going to choose that second result. So I think it's really important for business owners to know, that there are attributes that play a role in them appearing more often for the keywords that they want to appear for. And I think we'll break down some of those different areas in a few minutes. But I think fundamentally, it's almost critical. I would say every business owner, if I know most of the audience are SEOs, but if you're a business owner and you're watching this, just do a search for what you do and where you are. And if you don't see your listing in the map pack, in the 3-pack that you see at the top of the results or in the organic results below, then this webinar is going to help you to hopefully accelerate that, or at least be aware of why you're not appearing.
Awesome. And so it's clear that the Google search algorithm carries a big impact on local businesses. And we also know that a business can actually really thrive if they use it properly. But as the saying goes, the only constant in life is change. And I feel like that rings more true than anything else than with the Google local search algorithm. It feels like they update it constantly. So my next question for you is, what updates have you seen from Google that have shown an impact on local businesses?
Sure, and we've mentioned a few here on this slide. The the new map and local search interface isn't an algorithm update per se, but it does change a bit of how users do interact with the search results. So we want to make sure, number one, with some of this change, that the pin where our location is in the right place. Otherwise, what if there's a competitor across the street and they end up in the wrong place? They end up saying, well, I'm already over here, I'll just go to this competitor. That could be really scary. So that interface change is a big deal. It's not an algorithm change, but it is something to pay attention to. Do a search, look for your location, and make sure that that pin is in the correct place. The listings update, I know there's a lot of folks that aren't really happy about that. Hey, I don't have a Google My Business or Google Business Profile Center to log into. Well, they won't soon. And that's where I used to go to make all my edits and changes and that sort of thing. Well, you don't need to do that now. You can do it right in line. You don't have some lesser advantage than a large organization that can still use that interface, because all the same features and attributes are available to you, and all the things that search engines are looking for to rank you, are still available to be able to take advantage of, and we'll talk through those. But that was something that I know a lot of folks were really scared about. And again, more of an interface change, less of an algorithm. There is this new thing, not really that new, that Google has, and they're also now called Pointy. So if you do have products and you want to make sure that your product listings are available, and it says, in a local search result that that this particular location has this product in stock, that's a really cool tool to use. It takes less than 5 minutes to set up. Just do a Google search for it, start playing around with it. If you sell products, I think you'll find that it's a very intuitive tool to use, and definitely something that can play a role in what users see in the search results. It can impact your click-through rates because now you've got more data to share. The new business profile attributes. So this is another big thing that we've noticed in some of the tests. We actually did this test where we tried to figure out why a personal injury lawyer wasn't in the #1 spot. He was the best lawyer. He had the best reviews. He had more citations of his business information than anyone else. Why in the world wasn't he #1? And so we did this big sort of research project where we looked at row after row after row of potential attributes. And the one thing that we found at the time when we ran the test was that the business that ranked in the top spot at the time was getting away with a loophole in having the keyword in their business name, but they physically went out, got a DBA to include that so they could use that name. It wasn't, I'm just shoving keywords in there. They actually changed the name on a lot of them. Some of them that did, we were able to work with some of our peers and get those flagged. The other thing we noticed was the attributes. So this attribute piece was really interesting. The second result, most of the time, had one of these newer attributes in there. And there's a lot of different attributes, too, that you can apply. We've looked at, I got a list that I pulled just looking at some of the more recent ones. We've got appointment required, mask required, staff wears masks, staff gets temperature checks, temperature check required, and now more recently identifies as Black-owned, veteran-owned, woman-owned, LGBTQ friendly, staff required to disinfect surfaces, online estimates, and more. They're adding more attributes for you to explore and experiment with. And all it takes is for you to log in once a week and see if there's anything new that you can adjust or add or change, to improve how helpful your business listing is. So that's, the one big thing I noticed played an impact, especially in the Google Maps rankings, was the use of those attributes. And it tended to be that second position. Well, who was third? If the business that used the keywords in their name was #1, which hopefully, and I'm seeing a little bit more of it going away now, that loophole's dying, and attributes are #2. What was #3? #3 was random. Google just kept switching out that #3 results in a lot of our tests, and there wasn't any conclusive attributes or anything that we could tie into it. So to us, it's Google testing that listing, that third listing, to see if it belongs in the second or first listing. It's kind of interesting to watch. Now there's also this new Google News showcase, something that you can start putting some time and energy into with what you're doing with your business and sharing information, and perhaps even testing some structured markup on your pages. If you do have a section on your site that you can share what's happening in the business and in your industry, all sorts of cool things that are happening that you can explore and experiment with to see if it drives incremental business and brand awareness for you. Other algorithm updates, and everyone's who's listening is probably already aware, if you follow Search Engine Journal, of all the changes and trends that have happened, particularly in the product reviews updates. We actually saw a client recently impacted because of product reviews, and you have to really pay attention to not just how you're getting reviews, but you have to pay attention to what the end result of that infers to the search engines. So I would say to spend some time and actually create a review rating strategy for not just Google business profiles, but for all the places that people are talking about your business. So March 22nd, I think, was the last update, and we call it part 3. And this was really rewarding sites that have higher quality reviews. And quality is kind of a relative term, but it could mean a lot of different things. It could mean that there's more depth to the review, there's more factual information, there's less signals of reviews that might look like spam or very repetitive or empty. The part 2 was in December, and that's allegedly where they were suggesting providing more multimedia evidence around reviews, and providing links to multiple sellers for those products. The local search update, December of 2021. Joy Hawkins actually described it as a vicinity update, and this is why I was happy to see this happen, because there were a lot of certain industries. I'm not going to call all of them out, but we know locksmiths and payday loans and other folks that try to do what they can to saturate the heck out of the search results. We're really sort of gaming the results where they could, and vicinity helped a little bit with that, so that if you are near an actual local brick and mortar place, that Google's going to show you the one that's hopefully closest to you, and not just the one that's gamed their results. It also affected keyword stuffing in the business profile names, which I mentioned a minute ago. So while there's still some evidence of a bit of a loophole, and it might make sense for you to add, if your brand is Joe Law, Joe Personal Injury Law, right? To be more descriptive in your business name, but do that, at a business level, not at a search level. If it makes sense for your business, don't do it just for Google. Otherwise, what's going to happen eventually is you'll drive down the street, and instead of seeing McDonald's, you're going to see hamburger restaurant in Anaheim, over 1 billion served. And you're like, what happened to the brand? That's not what we want happening. So I thought that was really interesting. And every day they're making changes. And one thing I want everyone to really take with them as it pertains to algorithm updates are principles. The principles of search never change. It's around making sure our pages are the most helpful and most relevant to the keyword they punched in. It's making sure that other websites are talking about our business and maybe even linking to our business, and paying attention to how users are interacting with our listings in the search results. As we look at those 3 phases, right, of getting ranked in search, making sure our page is better than the top pages that already appear, looking at those pages in search results and finding common themes and saying, I'm going to make mine better. 2, looking at ways that you can build relationships with other perhaps verticals, similar verticals that aren't competitors, and saying, hey, let's team up and kind of cross promote and work together and do some really creative things to build more brand awareness for both of us. Maybe go to your industry websites, the magazines and the news portals around your industry, and figure out ways that you can interact with them. Justin's kind of what we're doing today, right? And then third is let's look at ways using Google Search Console and maybe Bing Webmaster Tools to understand, well, Microsoft, now I keep changing the name, try to understand our click-through rates for specific queries. And if our click-through rates are low because our titles, descriptions, and rich results aren't very helpful, let's run some tests. Let's add some star ratings. Let's add a video thumbnail. If we're in certain industries, we might even try putting emoji in there, right? I wouldn't do it for law, but if you have some really fun interactive business, emojis might be something cool to test to make your listing stand out. So I think those are kind of the 3 principles to focus on. Is every month, are we becoming more relevant, more popular, and more clicked on? And if we're doing those 3 things and holding those teams accountable to it, we don't have to worry about the changing algorithms. Great to pay attention to them, but not something we need to worry about.
Amazing. And I think that's a perfect segue into our next section of the webinar, which will be these tips. And I want to touch on quickly that despite all of the changes that Google makes, it seems like that the one thing that they've kept consistent forever has been the reason behind the changes. And that is to provide consistent, reliable, and correct information to the consumers that are doing the online searching. And so coming up, we're going to talk about some tips to help your business through those changes. Now, even though the algorithm is continuously being updated, these are evergreen best practices. And these are things that you can implement regardless of the updates. So no matter what happens, you're ahead of the curve. So let's get started with tip number 1. Do your research. Conduct a local SEO audit. Steve, you mentioned in a story just about 5 minutes ago that you had the lawyer who was not ranking number 1. And the first thing that you said you did was research. Can you explain what kind of research we should be doing and what exactly an SEO audit is?
Of course. So there's 2 parts of a local search result. There is the organic piece, right, which relates to the specific page on your website that you've optimized to appear for the search terms that you'd like to appear for. And then there's the map listings. And they both are similar, but they're based off of different things. The proximity, for example, is a good example of something that you'll see in maps that you could influence in organic, but not in maps. So you can't physically change your location if there's not a way to do that, right? So I would say, yeah, the audit's really important. And the way that I look at a local search audit specifically around our map listings is starting by making sure we know our business information is correct and accurate. As a small business, one easy way to do that is, using a platform like Birdeye and submitting your information, and then they'll work with the major data aggregators such as Data Axle and Foursquare and Localese to make sure that your information is correct, where the directories are going to pull from or purchase that information and be used across the web. So they're sort of like data sources, and making sure that those are accurate can give you some peace of mind that people aren't finding the wrong information about your business, the wrong phone number, the wrong address, the wrong PIN, etc. That's number 1, just making sure that business data is accurate and consistent. Number 2 is going to revolve around those local pages, the pages that that the user will actually navigate to. In that button in the maps where it says website, when somebody clicks on that website URL, is the information that's on that page representative of the information that we fed to Google Maps and into Bing? And what are some things that we can do to make those pages so helpful that they won't click back and choose a competitive result? Because if they do that, you have to imagine that the search engines over time are going to say, lots of people are clicking on this result and they're clicking on website, but they're coming back and they're choosing someone else. Maybe this result wasn't very helpful. Maybe I should demote it in the search results, because it seems like that result that I keep showing isn't being clicked on as much, or when they do click, they choose someone else when they come back. So some things that we found that in a study we did last year, we studied over 300 local landing pages for big brands like Starbucks and McDonald's and just the big guys with hundreds and sometimes thousands of locations, Taco Bell. And we wanted to understand what were they doing on their local pages that was different from what brands that weren't ranking as well were doing. And so we actually pulled some stats. I threw some together just for this event, but you can find these on our website on Wiideman.com. Just click the local SEO link at the top. The number 1 thing that we found that was the most interesting was that you have a 107% higher probability of ranking if you're using hyper-local content. Hyper-local content means content that's specific to that location. If you have 1,000 locations and all you have that's different on your location pages is the name, address, and phone number, those pages become very similar, and in some cases could get omitted. You might go to your Google Search Console and go to coverage and find, in that report that they're actually not using a lot of your pages because they found them to be too similar to other pages on your website. So we break that. We break that by adding images that are specific to that location, by adding maybe a little video or 360 tour to that page, by adding reviews from people who've actually been to that location and want to share their feedback on the website, not third-party reviews that we're curating, but our own content that we own and that we manage. you have an 84% higher probability of ranking by having just location photos alone. And I know this is hard for some businesses because you might be in a bad neighborhood. Maybe you're the absolute best restaurants, you know, on the block. But if you take a picture of your location, your neighboring businesses aren't as exciting visually. So it can feel challenging. So take some pictures inside, do close-ups, take pictures of smiling staff members cleaning tables, or, you know, whatever. Having a Google map embedded on your page gives you a 71% competitive advantage. 360 tour follows behind that one. Location-specific social profiles link to your Yelp profile and to your Foursquare profile, and maybe your TripAdvisor, depending on what industry you're in. You're giving votes to those profile pages to give them more credibility, and you're helping the search engines sort of correlate that entity to you know, to that location. Directions button next. Open now status. Right? It's great if I see the hours, but you know, if I have to look for a second to see if you're open versus open now. I mentioned native reviews and location hours, maybe even holiday hours. There's a ton of other criteria that we looked at that played a role in local pages. That was number 2. So we've got our business data accuracy. We've got our local landing pages. Next is going to be our business data visibility. Now, this one to me is controversial. And I know there's a ton of studies out there, and there's a lot of stats, local search ranking factors. You see them every year. You do a search for industry citation lists, and you find a lot of the generics out there still, like merchant circles, and it's borderline annoying. So what I noticed in our research when we were doing some really aggressive local citation building was that there was a difference between what we saw in sort of standard out-of-the-box citations, like your, again, merchant circle or Manta or Get Fave. I don't even know if they're around anymore. Hot Frog. Right? There's these general directories that nobody visits. No one patronizes them. They're just directories. And it's like a phone book. They're just not really used. So we break it down into a couple different areas. First, of course, is search engines, right? Or are we in Google and Bing and Yahoo? Well, Yahoo's now taking a lot of Yext and other stuff. Next is going to be navigation engines, right? Making sure we're in MapQuest and Apple Maps and Nokia here.com, I think it is. Making sure that we're in specific industry directories. So for a restaurant, we should be in all the restaurant directories, Restaurant G and Open Table and all those restaurant portals that list business information for restaurants. That was a big one for us. That was a differentiator, right? It was a huge deal seeing what the ranking difference was when we went after industry citations. If you're a lawyer, for example, you've got lawyers.com, Justia, Avo, FindLaw, All Law. There's a ton of them. And they're specific, and they drive traffic because people actually go to those websites. They use them because those websites typically produce content that's helpful, how to, where to, tips, how to hire an attorney, those kind of things. So they generate traffic and get a lot of visits from search engines. The last one is getting into really localized directories. Are you in the local chamber of commerce? In our city over here in La Mirada, we have lamirada.city.org. So am I listed in that business directory? Really finding those opportunities. And there's a lot of tools that you could use to do that research. The easy way is just grab your competitor's name and address and put them in quotes, name first and then address, street address second, and do a search and find out all the places that your local competition are getting their businesses listed. Team up with local community events and charities. Maybe do some creative things that we'll talk about in a minute to get those citations. That's what really stood out and why I think citations are still important. They didn't show as important in the research that a lot of other studies have done because they were generic. They were the generic directories. The more generic directories we're in, the more we're going to rank. Well, no, of course that study showed that didn't work because you have to actually get citations from sites that get traffic. The last attribute of the 4 that we look at when we're doing this local audit is going to be our reviews. And you're going to focus around 4 areas. You're going to, 3 areas really. You're going to focus around quality, quantity, and velocity. Those are super important. And I know it feels challenging and it feels weird asking customers, hey, can you leave us a review? But there are some ways around it. I know Yelp used to have this cool feature where if you checked in, you could get a free appetizer or something. So maybe think about ideas and programs that you could create when somebody comes into the restaurant and say, hey, you know, we're really trying to grow and build more awareness for this location. I don't know if you've been here before or this is your first visit, but you know what would be amazing is if while you're here, you could take a couple pictures and just upload them to Google Maps. You know, just go to Google Maps and, you know, find us. And then, you know, upload as many pictures as you like to share your experience. That'd be really helpful for other people. And in doing that, just in going to Google Maps and uploading pictures, just like you might in Yelp, it's going to suggest, have you been here before? Give us feedback, give us a review. And if it doesn't right away, it will in a couple of weeks. It'll say, hey, you've been here. How was your experience? So I think it's important for businesses to start thinking about where they're at. And in the audit, what you're going to do is you're going to look at your top local competitors. How many reviews do they have? What's their average rating? Is it 4.3, 4.7? What's ours? And then look at the velocity. How many reviews did they get last month, the month previous, and the month previous to that, to try to understand on average how many new reviews they're getting a month. That gives you something to benchmark off of and a way to, you know, to really scale. And I know Birdeye does have a solution to help streamline that for multi-locations. You're like, how do I do this? I've got 1,000 locations. I can't just look at one location. There are some features, I think, in the platform that allow you to do that. And I'm sure, Justin, you'll talk about that a bit later. But that's a local SEO audit. Accurate data accuracy, local landing page optimization, your citations, and your reputation. And if you're holding the team accountable to those 4 things every month and asking those questions, guys, how did we improve the accuracy of our data this past month? How did we improve our local pages? How did we improve our business data visibility off our website? How did we improve our reviews and ratings, online? If you're doing that every month, again, algorithms, use patterns of behavior, and it's going to show the search engines that you're paying attention to those 4 key areas. So that's the audit. That was a lot for one slide.
It's all great stuff, Steve. So thank you. So let's move on to tip number 2. We've got 5 more to go through. So I want to make sure we do this, making it have time for the Q&A. Because I've also seen we've got a ton of questions, and we've actually gotten a lot of questions about what we're going to talk about with this next tip. And that is to create a comprehensive Google business profile. Right. And to me, this might be one of the most crucial things that you can do as a local business to ensure a successful online reputation. Steve, what does it mean to create a comprehensive Google business profile? And why is it so important for local businesses to have this nailed down? And also, this is formally Google My Business.
Of course. We need to get everybody a pin that says, do all the things, right? Because this is an example of that. Google's given us a lot of different fields that we can use within the business profile, a lot of things that we can share with customers and potential customers that would be helpful to folks who are doing a search for the products and services that we offer. So to me, this is the perfect opportunity to use as much information that we can and utilize every available field. There's all sorts of fields that you can explore within the profile, and you can put in some of them expanded amounts of text. One thing that one trick that I've learned is I've looked at reviews of businesses that we've worked with, and I've incorporated the language from those reviews into the actual product and service descriptions within the different features in the Google My Business profile. So instead of you just saying, here's our business, here's what we sell, here's what we offer, here's all the things, you take what the users are saying, right? And you incorporate that into the copy, because now you're thinking like your customer instead of thinking like your business. And it's a really neat approach, but there are so many things that you can do. Now, just with the profile alone, you've got, of course, name and categories. You've got, these new product cards. There's a lot of different fields that you could utilize. Use all of them, and it can make such a difference. So there's other things that you can do as you're interacting with your profile. There's questions and answers that show up in the search results. Sometimes the questions are goofy and the answers are less desirable than you want them to be. My tip on that one is really try to influence that by having some of your best customers, your regulars, ask some questions that you get asked often in your customer service department. What are some questions people have when they call your location? Use those and then answer those questions, and then have other team members or, you know, other customers who you know are, you know, again, your regulars and the ones that know you by name, upvote those answers. That way you have a little more influence. And there's no reason why you can't use search terms in there. Like, you know, does this location offer delivery? You can say, yes, we offer breakfast delivery, right? Yeah, we offer dinner delivery. You can absolutely incorporate keywords into your answer, and there could be a chance that Google will be looking at that, at those fields, you know, when they're trying to decide how you want to rank. The next thing, of course, in that profile, pictures and video and, you know, all that rich media content. I think it feels like it was like 3 months ago now, but I was in a conversation with Mike Blumenthal, and we were talking about the importance of images and how Google's image recognition API can actually pick up what an image is. So, you know, if you sell pancakes, you can upload a picture of pancakes to their image recognition tool that they have. I think the testing tool is free to use, and it'll try to describe what it is, and it'll give you a percentage of accuracy of how accurate it thinks it is. Well, we think it's pancakes, but we're about 60% sure. All right, let me upload another one. Okay, we think it's pancakes and we're about 70% sure. All right, let me upload another one. So you can do some things to make sure that all of the different products and services that you sell are very clear to Google, because you can't label them in like you would in a normal photo sharing environment. So we want to make sure that the image recognition tools that they have, you know, their artificial intelligence, whatever they're using now to determine what a picture is very clear to them. So that's why the picture part's so important, and why you want to upload as many as you can of all the different products that you offer. But don't just do it randomly. Make sure that it's very crystal clear to everyone and to the search engine what you're taking a picture of. If there's a lot of things going on in that picture, it's going to be hard to depict what's what. So zoom in, focus in on that one item, you know, make it very clear that this is something that we offer and that we sell. Videos, equally important. Get some, you know, some videos uploaded of, you know, the front of the location, you know, what's going on this month, and which sort of segues into the Google posts that you can do. You can actually share what's going on, what's happening, what's new in these great posts, and include keywords that describe, you know, what the offer is and what you have going on at the moment. Those posts are free to use. Take a few minutes to, you know, to get your image looking great for that, or your video, and run some tests. Maybe do one a week. Set a goal. Hey, we're going to do a post once a week. Here's what's going on this week at this location. We're still doing this new special. It seems to be picking up. Customers seem to be loving it. Here's a quote somebody left on a review about what they thought about this product when they came in last week. Right? You can keep it fresh and up to date and helpful. So those are some things that I would do as I'm thinking about fully populating the Google Business Profile. Do your research around each field. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can look at competitor listings, the ones that rank well, and see what categories they're using. Maybe you are restaurants and you use restaurant as your primary category, but you really should have used bar and grill. I don't know. So take a look, do a search, look at what the competitors are using, the top ranking ones, and take the best of all of those things and make it better.
Awesome. And I see in the chat, we just got a quick question relating to what you're talking about. What if we post more than once every week? Is that okay?
Of course.
Just post all the time is good?
As much as you'd like to, as long as it's helpful.
Awesome. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I saw that, and I just wanted to address it. Now, let's move on to tip number 3, and that is to establish a robust review management system. The power of word of mouth cannot be understated in today's day and age. With so much information flying around, it feels like the only person you can trust is someone face-to-face or exactly there. And in fact, according to a study, 9 out of 10 consumers read reviews before buying a product. So, Steve, why is it important to have a robust review management system, and what can a business do to establish one?
Sure. I think there was one brand that learned a bit of their lesson this week and what happened online with reviews. But yeah, I agree. I think it's the third principle of search. It's how it's the user behavior signal that search engines look at. If they're not clicking on our listing because we have 1 star or 2 stars, or a negative review appears in the search results, no one is going to click that listing. And if no one clicks that listing gets demoted, it goes away. So I think it's critical from a user behavior standpoint and how users are interacting with our listings to make sure that we do have that quality, quantity, velocity we talked about earlier. But I do think there's some creative things that you can do to try to boost your reviews. And I mentioned a few earlier where you're just asking customers to leave pictures, but having the platform enables you to raise flags right away, especially if you have thousands of locations. What you could do is you pick those, you do the sort by the ones that just came in, like immediately just came in, are 1 star, or use words that that you would flag as being negative in sentiment, and then address them right away. In fact, you can have it set up where every morning an email goes out to that location manager or owner, and it says, here's all the reviews you received yesterday. You might want to address them right away. And then part of the process is that manager, that owner, has to go in and actually respond to the review. And what's neat about that is the software, a lot of these, like what you offer, will actually track how those responses are taking place, so that you can come back and say, we got 25 reviews yesterday, 15 were negative, and we only replied to 3. So it's important, I think, to use those as metrics and say, how are we doing in terms of the reviews that we're getting, and what percentage we're responding to, and how does that correlate into some of those negative reviews going away or changing to a positive review because we rolled out the red carpet. I think at a corporate level, it's important to evangelize for responding to reviews and opening that morning email if you're having it sent out every morning. And it's important to get together and come up with the ways to respond. And I know Yelp and Google and even TripAdvisor have shared guides on what they recommend and how they recommend you respond to those things. So, take some of those as canned answers to start with, and then personalize the answer to help the person who was having a poor experience, and reply to positive things too. Hey, thanks so much for leaving a great review. We really appreciate you and can't wait to see you back in again. It makes them feel appreciated and valued. I took time to open my phone, to go to the app, to leave a review, and I heard crickets. But and on the other hand, I'm like, oh, somebody got a notification. Oh, cool. They got my review and they're happy. Great. Maybe next time I go in, they'll remember me and give me a high five. So I think that's a critical part of creating an action plan for reviews is, holding each individual location accountable to listening, to responding to both positive and negative reviews, and keeping track of the metrics so that we can go back later and say, so last year we only responded to 20% of the people who left us reviews. This year, let's set a KPI goal of responding to 50. I think that's a great starting point.
Yeah, incredible. And it is, in having a system that can help you manage all of those reviews, especially if you have multiple locations, which I've seen a couple in the chat in the Q&A mention that they've got a lot of locations. Right. Being able to manage that in one place makes it a million times easier than having to log into multiple different platforms and Google profiles and trying to get everything connected. And then it also makes it easier to get more reviews. When something is automated, where every time you complete a transaction, a review is sent to that person's phone, and it's one click away to leaving a review. It's not only one, you need to be able to ask everyone for a review, not just your happy customers. And you also need to be able to make it easy for them, because by the time they walk out the door, they're going to forget about what just happened. They're ready to move on with the rest of their day. We're all
really at a restaurant, they're ready for a nap.
Exactly. So let's keep moving, and we'll go on to tip number 4. And let's see here. Creating comprehensive content. Steve, let's talk a little bit about content. And I'm sure everyone here is at least familiar with SEO when talking about putting keywords into blogs and articles and things like that. But I feel like there's a lot more that you can do than just stuffing a blog full of keywords. Can you tell us about what it means to have comprehensive content and what that would look like for a local business?
Sure. And I'll keep it tied into local, because I know we're really focusing around local search and multi-location. We'd already talked a little bit about how we want to use our Google business profiles to share as much as we can in the voice of what customers are looking for. I think that's a that's a good starting point. Is first, let's just make sure everywhere that we're sharing our business information, that we're sharing enough context to solve what we know our customers are really looking for. Not the keywords they're searching for, but what their end desire is. What is it they really like? So using the reviews is a great way to do that. The next thing I would look at is on the organic side of a local search is making sure that we're appearing like below the maps for more of those longer tail queries. Now, here's something that was really exciting during the beginning of the pandemic. We had a restaurant client we were working with that was struggling with, of course, their location was closed. Like, oh my God, we're closed right now. What are we going to do? So they said, let's open our kitchen up and let's just do delivery and takeout. And they did that, but nobody was ordering. Well, why is that? Well, because they didn't have any language on their website that talked about delivery or takeout or carside or curbside or takeaway or, you know, whatever you happen to be calling it. So we said, hey, as a solution to this, let's create some sub pages underneath our location pages for specific things. And we did this, you know, back in 2014 with Meineke Car Care. We actually ended up creating a sub page for each of the different services. You need muffler repair in Anaheim. Great. We've got a page underneath our Anaheim location that talks about our muffler repair service, and, you know, and maybe even has some reviews that talk about people who came in and had a muffler repair. So we took that history, that learning, and we did the same thing for delivery and for takeout. We can do the same thing for specials, breakfast specials near me, for example. We can do the same thing for catering near me, caterer near me, and it was just an overall really kind of exciting experience. Like, hey, if we can create this content at scale, which is hard to do because you've got potentially thousands of locations, but we know a lot about those locations that are unique. We have a lot of unique amenities, unique attributes. What else can we put into the database that's unique to that location? How far is it from the nearest freeway? What's the nearest you know, event venue that somebody might want to stop at your location before or after going to that event venue? You know, some history of the area, something about the parking. How many disabled parking spots do you have at the moment? There's a lot of unique attributes that can make those pages completely different from one another, so that you don't just have 1,600 breakfast delivery pages, but instead you have 1,600 location pages that share delivery information. And in doing that, you know, we're able to see first page placement within a few months for every single one of those sub pages, which was a huge relief. But when the pandemic started to come to a little bit of a slowdown and people were going back into restaurants, the online orders didn't stop. People were still ordering online. And now we've got people coming into the restaurant and ordering online, and there's one person managing all the tables in the place because there's no staff, and everyone's freaking out. What do we do? So we created a restaurant jobs page. So restaurant jobs in city. And now over 50,000 applications have come in from people who searched restaurant job near me, server job near me, host job near me, bus job near me. We were able to incorporate all those search terms into a restaurant job subpage and help bring in new staff to help handle all the new work, since obviously now they've got two different sources of traffic coming in, the foot traffic and now the online orders as well. So content can be a fantastic way to scale the amount of traffic that you're getting, provided you take the time to create really high quality content and not just whip together 2 sentences and, you know, an image and say, okay, we got 1,600 of these pages, they should rank. No, make them really helpful. What are people saying about your delivery? You know, what are some benefits about it? You have some pictures or images of what your packaging looks like when it is delivered. You know, what's your policy on things? Do you do doorstep? Are there delivery service providers like Uber Eats and so forth that I can mention on those pages and maybe even link to? So I think there's a lot that you can do with content as a local business, and you can scale it, you know, by getting really creative on some of those local attributes that would go into the database and play into those dynamic pages.
Nice. Yeah, and I think that's a great segue into our next tip, which is in the same note of content, but a little bit different. And that's about links, citations, and offsite visibility. What does that mean? And how can a local business use this to their advantage?
Well, I promised I would talk about this earlier. And this is where the citations can be easy to get and be higher quality than the citations that were discovered in a lot of that local SEO research that people are doing for ranking factors. So here's an example. An attorney we work with last year did this really fun thing where they gave away helmets to kids on like a helmet safety day, and they invited the community to come in and get a free helmet for their kids to do something for safety, to just kind of give back to the community. And all they had to do was go to their neighboring businesses and say, hey, we have this event coming up. If you can't contribute funds or resources to help us with it, perhaps your webmaster can add something to the website, to your blog, to your social media, to talk about the event and mention our address where they can go to get their free helmet. And next thing you know, we've got, some 80 local businesses that have all given us a business name, address, phone number, and link to a local page by just doing a local event. And, and I know it can be hard to scale. Sometimes you have to get really creative and empower the location itself to do a little bit of the grunt work, but it can work. And so getting citations from local businesses and even the local Chamber of Commerce, they mentioned a Starbucks once because they had this meet and greet with the sheriff. Really cool idea. It's a great way to get some free PR. That attorney I mentioned actually got on the news because of the event. They thought it was such a neat thing that the local news picked it up. So talk about a great high traffic link from a news website. Yes. And that event schema, if you put, schema.org/event on that page, it'll give you one extra row in the search results below the maps, where it has a direct link to the event and makes your listing stand out a little bit more. So I would say that's something I would absolutely prioritize. It doesn't take a lot of work and can have some huge benefits, both for your business, your brand, and for your keyword rankings.
Awesome. And so for this next one, we touched on it in other conversations and other webinars, and as well as probably a little bit earlier today. And then the last thing is activity.
Yes.
And I don't even know what else to say. Is like, I'm just going to let you take it because I feel like this is something that this is like your thing. So I want you to go for it.
This is so interesting.
And how does it impact businesses?
Of course. And I know we're running short on time, so I'm going to breeze through it. But this is something I've been paying attention to recently, where we looked at 2 different locations for a brand in similar areas or nearby. So it's not like there's weather restraints or anything. But we say, let's run this test and let's ask all the people who work there to get driving directions. Go to their favorite app, Google or wherever, and get driving directions, when they come into the workplace every day. And when you get there, click, leave a picture or, I've been here, I'm here now, right? Use all the different features that the apps and Google Maps will allow you to use to sort of validate. And if you think about it, if you think about how search engines are looking at activity, if they see a lot of activity where people are searching by name, clicking on the map listing, going to the location, and then confirming that they're there, NFT technology is part of the phone, right? So confirming they're there by uploading a picture or leaving a review, it sort of validates, hey, this place is real, it's alive, it's active. And the more active they see a profile, the more they might find that profile to be more helpful. So I don't have a lot of data on it yet, but I do know the one location where we did some of that testing, where we looked at people looking for directions, which is what Google wants you to do anyway. They want to make sure that your directions are correct. Why wouldn't you test directions coming into your place of work to make sure that everything was accurate? It worked. We actually saw an incremental lift just by seeing more activity, more pictures being posted, more driving directions being requested. Now, this doesn't mean go out and buy, 200 mobile phones and set up a browser emulator and a VPN to make it look like people are searching. It's not sustainable, and it creates a pattern of behavior that when it stops, will raise a flag and probably get you, flagged or even removed from the search results. So don't try to manipulate that particular activity signal. Just encourage it with your team and customers. And hey, how'd you find us today? Oh, I used Google Maps. Oh, great. And just it's fantastic. Hey, while you're here, why don't you post a picture on Google Maps, since you probably still have it open, of what you saw when you were here. I think there's a lot that you can do from an activity standpoint to show the search engines that you're active, you're live, and that people are searching for you and actually coming to your location to validate that you're real and not just a spam listing or a virtual office. So those are some things that I would pay attention to. That image recognition thing we talked about earlier. Kudos to Mike Blumenthal for calling that out. But could be a huge thing. So get active, be active, and hold yourselves accountable every month to improving each of those, activity metrics. So did we get more images? Did we get more reviews? Did we get more of our team members taking driving directions?
Definitely. So that's all 6 tips. And I know we're running short on time, so we do want to get to the Q&A, but I did want to give you one last, the floor for one last minute, Steve, to offer any last bits of advice, maybe a bonus tip or something like that.
Sure. Well, we did throw a bonus slide on here with a KPI tracker you could use. We'll have the link for it shared as well. We have a bit.ly you could use. There's no opt-in or anything. It's just a Google Sheet. Feel free to borrow this and play with it as much as you want to. This gives you something, again, that you can use at the end of every month to talk to the team and say, hey, are we improving the number of quality links that we're getting to our site? Are we improving the technical scores for page speed and accessibility and security and international targeting and multi-language? Is our average keyword position improving over time? Keyword market share, right? How are we doing in terms of us versus the competition, and setting some goals and saying, hey, we want to take 5% of the market share by the end of the year. So all these are in this template. You're more than welcome to play with it, but at least it gives you an answer when someone says, how are we doing with hitting our SEO goals for the year? You can go back and say, oh, we're 16% there, and about where we should be.
Awesome. Okay, so we've got a couple of things. So for our final takeaways, here's a recap of the tips we just covered. Do your research. Conduct a local SEO audit. Create a comprehensive Google business profile. Establish a robust review management system. Create comprehensive content that covers not just what your customers are searching, but how they're searching. Create links, citations, and offsite visibility. Generate that local interest. You might even get on the news. And activity. Take pictures. Use the maps to go to work. Things like that really do help drive your online presence. And so let's keep moving on. Trying to be quick here because we have a million questions, which is great. Thank you, everybody, for submitting questions.
We'll get to all of them, even if it has to be after the webinar, I promise.
We'll see. We'll have to get on another call, and we'll crank them out and go through them all. So real quick, Google and Birdeye do have a partnership that spans the Google Business Profile, Google Reviews, Google Business Messages, the Knowledge Panel, Advanced Analytics, Maps, and Google Seller Ratings.
Seller ratings are awesome, by the way. That gives you star ratings in your paid ads. It's so cool.
It's awesome. And the thing about that is they allow your business to showcase its positive reviews in the form of star ratings, but it's not as easy. So they're free, but getting them to show up on your ads isn't easy because Google only allows the ratings from verified sources and partners to allow the display of those ratings within the ads. They don't want to have some one-off thing like, oh, this business on their ads has a 5-star rating, when in reality it's not. So they really want to make sure that those are legit reviews and ratings that they are putting on their ads, which is from Birdeye because we are an official partner with them. And so let's go ahead and just jump right into the Q&A. We've got so many questions. And one of the first ones that I wanted to ask you, Steve, is we've talked a lot about local businesses, and it feels like we've touched mostly on brick and mortar. Mm-hmm. So let's say you're a service area business, how would you approach your Google business profile in making sure that, you're because with Google Maps, you don't have a physical address or a location. What would you do if you didn't have an actual location in terms of?
I think you can influence it in different ways. Local pages themselves can help if you serve a location. We work with some HVAC companies that don't, obviously you're not going to go into their physical location, right? So they have this service area. And what we do is we just make sure when we're getting reviews that we ask, hey, and mention, if you can, when you mention how we did, mention where you're at. So that way in the review itself, it says, I hired them for a service here in Anaheim, even though the brick and mortar location might be in Buena Park or something. And that can have a little bit of an influence on it, but it's a tough one because when you get to service area businesses, sometimes you get outranked by those that have physical addresses and try to use them to try to gain search results. So I think it's important to look at all those different areas we talked about before in your business data accuracy. part of it. If you can put some of the geographical information into descriptions, of those cities that you serve, make sure that all of them, that you would service are in there. Next would be that local page. So on that local page, you might put the cities that you generally provide service to, so it matches up when Googlebot and Bingbot crawl the page. The citation side of things, maybe you're not physically located in La Mirada, but you serve La Mirada. You go back to La Mirada and say, hey, we serve your area and would love to be listed in your business directory. So the citation side allows you to do that. And I already mentioned reviews. So you touched on all 4 of those different areas. You should be okay for showing up in a city where you don't have a physical address.
Awesome. I've got another one here, and it's, can negative reviews go away? Is this something that you can delete off of Google? And if not, yeah, there's the answer right there. But I do think that what you can do instead is respond to it. One of the best things that you can do is respond to the negative review, and not just show the person leaving the review that you care about them and their experience and you want to make things right, but you're also showing everyone else who reads that review. So for me, if I'm looking for the best cheeseburgers near me and someone leaves a comment saying that they got a 1-star review because they forgot the pickles, I don't know. But if I see that the business responded, be like, we're so sorry, like, well, here's a coupon, here's this, here's that, I'd be like, wow, okay. So they made a mistake, but they really tried hard to fix it. Like, for me as a reader, I'm not going to look at them poorly because of that one bad review. Yeah. But this does remind me of another question. And how would a negative review impact SEO?
Well, I mentioned that click-through rate problem. Negative reviews, if you have a lower rating than a competitor, they're likely to click on the competitor more than you because they have more stars. Nobody clicks on a 2-star review, right? So it can affect the click-through rates and user behavior signal that we know search engines ultimately use once we've qualified to rank through our content and our links. Definitely.
And this is great, but we did forget one tip, Steve. This is my fault. I completely skipped over it, but it is to be friends with Steve Wiideman. Thank you, Don, for that.
Did you guys see that? I thought that was one of my favorite comments that I saw there. Yeah, I hate to butt in. I feel like I'm coming in on this conversation, and I hate to do it to you all, but we're at time, and I know that it's hard to believe, but we are. The list of questions, I mean, you saw them coming through, Justin, and you made comments. I mean, the list of questions, I can tell you this year for sure, we've not had this many questions in a webinar. That's all. They're going to be very busy after this.
Yeah, we are. We're definitely going to have to get together, Steve, to go through these.
I'd love to.
So we've got some ideas on our end, maybe if we can, catch up later. But for right now, I'm going to tell you guys, this has been a great webinar. You can see it in the comments. Everybody has really enjoyed it. We'll find a way to get all of your questions answered. So thank you for the ones who did stay with us, which is almost 300 people. So we had a very, very big show today. So thank you all. Steve, Justin, thanks for being here with us. Tell the people where to find you before we let you go.
Oh, I'm SEO Steve everywhere. SEO Steve. If you want to tag my team, just go to any Wiideman social profile, Wiideman, and we're happy to answer questions or solve any ranking problems that you might have.
Definitely. And you can just find me on LinkedIn, Justin Meredith. But more importantly, you can go to birdeye.com and talk to any of our review management experts who can help you with anything when it comes to your online reputation and improving the strength of that.
And remember that Spider-Man is the original web designer.
Definitely.
Dad jokes never get old. Kathy, thank you. Kathy said this was the best webinar we've put on. I agree. This is one of our top. Thank you both for being here. Thank you, everybody who was out there watching today. We'll get this recording sent out. Hope you all have a great day. Bye.
Awesome. Thank you.